Hello Trenchers, this is the video for the mercenaries that you can hire for your warbands, and there is quite a few of them, and most of them is for the faithful factions and very few of them is for the hell side. The Sister of Saint Cosmas, Communicant anti-tank hunter, Mendelist monk, Witchburner observer, combat biologist and Mamluk Faris is for the faithful factions, the Goetic Warlock and Sin Eater for hell side, and the Scripture Guardian is our neutral mercenary. So the mercenaries are kind of a wild card to use, and also their appearance is very random. And what I mean that you can never be sure when your opponent is buying it or plan to buy it and how useful they are going to be, as some mercenary is more useful than the others, and also some of them is more fun to use than the others. The first one is the combat biologist, as the fun factor of this unit I would say only 5. As lore-wise this unit is supposed to collect samples from fallen heretic units and demons to find their weak spot and develop potent serums or whatever to kill them more efficiently. And this one sounds fun, but using it in game it's very minimally reflected on the abilities, let's say. And because of that, and not just that, but overall, the in-game usage is also 5 out of 10, because the abilities it has are very difficult to use efficiently. It has the battlefield vivisection, which gives you the gather knowledge glorious deed as an extra that you can hopefully collect during the mission. And for that you need to kill 3 enemy unit, which is in melee range for the combat biologist. You can kill it with other unit, but you need to kill it. And this one is very difficult to do in my opinion, so most probably it's not going to trigger too much during a campaign, let's say. The prize specimens is giving you a blessing marker if you can kill 1 enemy unit with the combat biologist, which has the demonic or black grail keyword. This one is also not easy to trigger in my opinion. The weapon, the vivisector, can help in that in some way, but again, it's a two-handed weapon, but the main problem is that the combat biologist only has -1 armor, so it makes it very squishy. And the pain amplifier ability of the weapon is very useful to hopefully kill someone, as this ability is reducing the critical effect threshold by 1 for each blood marker the enemy has. So if your opponent or target unit has, let's say, 2 blood marker instead of 12, your weapon is critting on 10+. That's good, but it's very hard to call it a game changer, let's say. And again, since it has only -1 armor, very difficult to use efficiently in my opinion. The Sister of Saint Cosmas, again, very difficult unit, and fun factor I would say 4, as this is just purely a combat medic, which is a regular unit for New Antioch. For the pilgrims this is a mercenary, and the in-game usage is, again, it's very difficult here, so I would say 5, because the 2 ability it has is the expert medic, and this one is helping you to remove 1 blood marker more easily from the target unit you are standing next to, I mean a friendly target. And the Finish the Fallen is very good against Black Grail or Demonic units, as it's giving you +1 injury dice if the target is down. And since this unit also has -1 armor only, this is very difficult to use efficiently. And it has +0/+0 dice, so I would say it's even less fun overall to buy and use. The Ammo Monk, however, is fun factor wise I would put it 8.5, and in-game usage definitely a 7 at least, as the unit itself doesn't do any attack, it's just only boosting or buffing up a friendly unit it's standing next to. And the buffing is very good because if you pass the risky roll, you can boost the friendly unit it's standing next to, as either giving +1 dice for the attack, or giving blast 2 and shrapnel keyword if the weapon doesn't have the blast or flamethrower keyword, or giving +1 injury dice for the ranged attack. And if you make it stand next to the right unit, this can be really powerful if you manage to pass the risky roll. So I would say overall the 2 glory worth for the Ammo Monk. The Communicant Anti-Tank Hunter, however, well, fun factor 7, I would say, and in-game usage probably 10, as it has regenerate, strong and tough keyword, so it's very difficult to kill already. It has -1 armor only, which is not much, but it's very difficult to kill due to the regenerate and tough keyword, so it's very tricky. It has cleave too, so it can defend itself in melee, but the real power comes in with the anti-material rifle it has, which is usually deleting anyone with high armor. And this one definitely worth the price for sure, so if you can buy it as a faithful faction, especially since you can only buy it for new Antioch and Pilgrim, this is highly recommended if you want to go for like pure devastation. The Scripture Guardian is maybe the most powerful mercenary currently. Fun factor 9 and in-game usage 10 in my opinion, as this one is a Neutra, so both sides can buy it for 7 glory, which is a lot. But the Vengeful Scripture action is maybe one of the most powerful currently in my opinion, as within 18 inch you can kind of delete any unit if it has blood markers. As if the unit is in, let's say, short range, you are getting +2 for the attack as a bonus. If it's in long range, +1, but if you manage to make a normal roll, you are getting +1 injury modifier for each blood marker if you spend it. That's already quite good, to be honest, but if you manage to make a critical hit, it's ignore armor, +1 injury dice, and +1 injury modifier for each blood marker without spending it. And this one just deletes every unit you can imagine. Of course, except the tough units, but you can, help with that in some other way. But generally this one is the monster, I believe, or in my opinion, among the mercenaries currently. The Mamluk Faris is, I would say, fun factor around 4.5 and the in-game usage around 7.5. As the fun factor wise, maybe I just didn't get it fully, but this is like a remaining nomadic force of a faction that was once existed in Egypt, if I remember correctly, and they are just kind of like a traveling hired mercenaries, and that's it. So yeah, the in-game usage, however, it's quite good, as it has a base loadout which is coming with the Jazil and alchemical ammunition and reinforced armor, but it has an option to choose between 3 additional weapon loadouts that you can choose but before every mission. So you can deploy it differently for every mission you play. And it can be a greatsword, polearm and trench shield, or pistol and sword, or sword/axe. So it's giving a very interesting flexibility to the unit depending on whom you're playing against, that you can use efficiently, hopefully. The difficulty with the unit is that it's squishy, as it only has -2 armor. If you use it with the trench shield, it's -3, but it doesn't have tough keyword. However, it can be deployed as like a limited infiltrator unit, so along the edge of the map, which can be useful to hopefully rush an objective or an enemy unit. And it's giving a bonus for the greatsword and the Jazil if you use it, or not use it, but choose that weapons as an extra. And also it has a fire team option with elite units. And if you use it with New Antioch, this can be your 3rd fire team, which can be quite useful. Or if you use it with Iron Sultanate, this is your only fire team option normally. So it gives you some extra flexibility that you can use, so that's why it's quite good in some way. The Observer, however, I think it's fun factor wise 9 and in-game usage 7.5, as this one is kind of like an elite soldier for the Synod, but in-game it's manifesting in some of the abilities, but generally as a thought that this unit is hearing the message of God constantly and needs to focus and so on. It's quite interesting and fun in some way. But as a skill-wise, this unit is also very interesting as it can be two different options for you if you use it. One, you kind of use it only as a voice of God action spammer. You keep it somewhere in the backline and you just use the voice of God every turn and messing up your opponent's activation plan for that turn. As if you manage to pass the risky roll, you can decide which unit your opponent needs to activate after it. The other option you can choose is that you send in to fight, as it has cleave 2 keyword, a polearm, and it has some kind of defense with the temporal fig, as it's giving -1 dice for the ranged and melee attacks for the opponent. So it makes it a bit more chanceful that it survives, but it only has -1 armor, and it doesn't have tough. So it's very, I would say, debatable which one is the good decision, but I would say it highly depends on which opponent you're playing against and which tactic works for you in that specific scenario to use it for. The Sin Eater, I think definitely as a fun factor it's 10. This unit is supposed to eat other units based on lore, and this makes it very funny as it's doing exactly the same in-game. So I think it's funny as hell. But the main problem with that is that this eating ability is a melee one. So you need to go into melee and use the skill. And that's making it not easy to do it or use it efficiently. But if you manage to do it, you can remove one very important unit of your opponent from the table. Hopefully it's not getting out, because there is also option for that among the kind of skills. Of course you can only eat smaller units, not bigger ones, but still this can be quite important. And the funny thing here is that if you manage to make 6 blood marker on the target you swallow, that unit is out of action automatically. So this can be a quite useful option for you, but it's very hard to use efficiently. And for 6 glory it's very expensive in my opinion, so you need to think about it very carefully to buy it or not, because in my opinion maybe it's worth better to buy different mercenaries or equipment instead. The Goetic Warlock, however, is maybe more useful in-game, so I would say it's an in-game usage 8 and fun factor wise 9, because it's a melee only unit. It has -2 armor, so it's more chanceful that it survives, but in exchange it can teleport into combat or out of combat. It can even grab an enemy unit and teleport out with it, and I think it's very useful, can be very useful. Of course you need to make the roll for it, I mean the risk roll. So this can be sometimes maybe not working out and you stay where you are, but if it works out, this can be very useful. And the teleportation can be very annoying, especially that the melee attack is very good of the Warlock, as it's getting cleave 2 and critical keyword for it. So, and also with the Goetic Gaze, you can give blood marker to any unit that you can see. So I think it's definitely worth the 4th ducat for this unit. The Witchburner is another, or let's say the last mercenary, and this is the only elite mercenary among the mercenaries. So if you buy it, it's immediately elite, which is good because it means it cannot be killed easily. It can collect experience immediately, and the fun factor wise I would say it's 7, because the skills reflecting the essence of the Witchburner very well in my opinion. But in-game usage it's a little bit difficult because it's also a melee only unit. So fun factor 7, in-game usage 6.5, as it cannot dash, so it's slow. It has -2 armor at least, so more probably survive than not. And the Divine Judgment, you can give blood markers very efficiently to your opponent. And with the weapon Gavel of Justice, you can give additional blood markers if you manage to hit the opponent. So it's very funny in the concept way, and it's giving out a lot of blood marker if you make the roll, but it's very difficult to use it well because it's slow. I mean, not slow because 6-inch movement, but it cannot dash. So it's very tricky to get into melee with it, but if you can, it can be hilarious as hell for sure. And as you can see on the summary table, the availability of the mercenaries is not exactly even. So For new Antioch and Trench Pilgrims it's quite good because they can almost choose between all of the mercenaries. For Iron Sultanate it's quite restricted, as they can only have 3 of them. Heretic Legion and Court also 3, and the Black Grail only 2. So I think what can help here for each faction is to rework this availability in some way, and most probably it means expanding the options, either among the existing units or including more type of mercenaries, which means more selection that you can choose from. And probably the second one would be the better way to do, because it means the game is more, not flexible, but your choice of options are broader. So you can have more option to decide based on the campaign, the situation, your opponents, what can be the most helpful for you to, let's say, succeed in the situation or in the mission. So these are the mercenaries. I hope this, let's say, brief overview was kind of helpful for you in some way. Let me know what is your favorite mercenary so far, based on lore or based on usage, up to you. For me it's definitely the Scripture Guardian, I think, in both way, as it's hilarious that it's just reading like a fairy tale or grim tales out of the book for the target, so I think it's quite interesting and it's quite good, especially with the golem keyword, so it's very difficult to kill, which I forgot to mention. So I think this is the most cost efficient mercenary you can get currently. Of course it's not easy to collect 7, but if you can, and especially if you can promote it to be elite, chef's kiss. Thanks for listening and see you in the next video. Bye bye.